on the breaking news that Diane Abbott has confirmed she's been barred from standing as a Labour MP at the general election, despite being given the whip back by the party yesterday.
So joining us now from the West Midlands is the Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Good morning, Mr. Streeting.
Good morning.
We are expecting... We all know what Diane Abbott is capable of, and we are expecting fireworks from her later today. Are you?
Well, look, I've only been hearing this news myself this morning. I've a great deal of respect for what Diane Abbott has achieved in politics. It was right the Labour Party took disciplinary action for what she wrote in a piece for The Guardian. She apologised for that. The suspension was lifted yesterday, the whip restored. But it seems from the reports that I've read that she's not going to be standing as a Labour candidate.
Well, that makes it sound as if it's in her gift. She's not being allowed to stand. The party won't allow her, which seems to me, to be honest, to be rather like giving somebody the car keys, but then saying sorry, but you can't get in the car.
Well, look, as I say, Richard, I'm not sure of the circumstances that have led to this decision. I'm just relying on the sort of second-hand reports that we're reading this morning. What I am I'm very concerned about is the risk of giving the matches back to the arsonists who've led to catastrophic waiting lists in the NHS, the worst performance in the NHS's history.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Streeting, but, you know, before we move on, we know what you're here to talk about, and we will come on to that, but it is important that we address this because, you know, there's a lot of concern about this situation. We're breaking the news this morning about what's happened, and we're interested to hear from you as a member of the Shadow Cabinet as to why this might have happened and whether you think it's the right thing.
Yeah, I'd just say respectfully for everything that Diane Abbott has achieved in politics and whatever our disagreements, I do have a lot of respect for Diane. And with respect to your questions, I actually think that what happens to 7.5 million people on NHS waiting lists is of far greater importance and concern than the fate of any individual candidate or politician.
Just told you that we'll come on to that. Yep. So would you please we've got plenty of time, would you just wait for the question to arise before we get on to that, which I promise you we will do. Let's come back to Diane Abbott. Is the reason that she has been denied access, as it were, to this election because you're purging the left? You started with Jeremy Corbyn. She obviously is very, very close to Jeremy Corbyn. They used to go out together, and politically they're very, very close. Is this actually all part of Sir Keir Starmer's purging of the hard left from Labour?
Well, I don't know the circumstances of this particular decision, but there is no question the Labour Party has changed from the party that was rejected in 2019. The Labour Party's disciplinary procedures are separate from members of the Shadow Cabinet, and quite rightly. But there's a fundamental point here. The Labour Party has changed from the party that was rejected in 2019, the worst result since 1935, and we have undergone that change as a party to be in a position where we can offer the serious change, the serious alternative that our country is crying out for. And goodness knows we need it when you look at the state of the economy, rising rents, rising bills, rising mortgages, rising NHS waiting lists, and the risk of Rishi Sunak being given the matches, giving the matches back to the arsonists that have caused this problem, all of these problems that have been storing up for the last 14 years, and that's the change that's on the ballot paper on July the 4th.
We will come on to giving you the opportunity to talk about that, but we're just interested to know if you're comfortable with this situation. Is it fair that she's treated like this? She was the first black woman to be elected to Parliament. She's been a senior political figure within Labour. She would have been Mother of the House. Is it fair that she's treated like this? Do you feel comfortable about it?
Well, as I say, I don't know the circumstances or the factors in the decision, so it's I say this respectfully, a fruitless line of questioning, so I'm not going to tell you any more than I already know. I can talk to you till the cows come home about how we're going to get NHS waiting lists down.
OK, well, then are you shocked or surprised that someone with her lineage in Labour should be given the whip back and at the same time told that she can't run for office?
Well, the news came as a surprise to me this morning.
A genuine surprise. You really didn't see this coming as a Shadow Cabinet Minister?
No.
Honestly?
No. I heard this news this morning.
Well, we have to take you at your word on that then. OK, well, as I say, we are expecting to hear from Diane Abbott a little later today, possibly even before we go off air this morning. If we're still talking to you, then we might throw you some more questions on that.
Are you slightly worried about the communication then in the Shadow Cabinet if this is the situation?
Well, I'm really worried about the fact that NHS waiting lists are standing at 7.5 million. We've got a plan to get the waiting list down. I've not had a chance to talk about it yet. And gazing into my crystal ball of experience on programmes and my experience on Times Radio this morning, I bet we're going to run out of time when I'm about halfway through talking about it.
No, because we're coming on to that now. How are you going to clear this backlog of patients? How will it actually work?
We're going to start with delivering 40,000 more appointments a week through evening and weekend clinics, £1.1 billion going in to fund that reform, taking an approach that's used in a small number of hospitals very successfully, but taking the best of the NHS to the rest of the NHS. We're going to double the number of diagnostic scanners in the NHS, not just more scanners, but AI-enabled scanners, so that we can get through the 1.6 million people waiting anxiously for those diagnostic tests and scans much more quickly. And we're going to use spare capacity in the independent sector, because we're already seeing people who can afford it going private and being seen faster. And I'm not prepared to see working class people who can't afford it being left behind. So we'll use that spare capacity, deliver it to patients on the same terms as the NHS, free at the point of use. And taken together, that is a serious plan that can get NHS waiting times back to the 18-week standard that the last Labour government met and the Conservatives haven't met since 2016. And that's the choice on the ballot paper in July the 4th.
OK, what are you going to do about people pulling out their own teeth in their kitchens with pliers? Because we just have such a shortage of NHS dentists. How are you going to fix that?
Yeah, look, we've got to rebuild NHS dentistry, and our starting point is to provide 700,000 extra emergency appointments every year. That is a fully costed, fully funded policy, as the plan to get waiting lists down. It's part of a whole package for the NHS, clamping down on tax avoidance and the non-dom loopholes that the Tories have still built into the non-dom system, despite saying they were going to work their way out of it. And unlike lots of the other parts of the NHS, the challenge in dentistry is that we've got quite a lot of dentists, but the contract is so out of date that it just doesn't pay what the dentistry is worth. So we're going to have to negotiate a new dentistry contract. I've committed to getting the British Dental Association in on the Monday after the general election if we win, because I see it as that big a priority. The Tories have had 14 years to sort this out. They have failed spectacularly. The Dickensian conditions you describe in 21st century Britain are an indictment on their miserable failure, and that's why I say to people, do not give the keys, do not give the matches back to these arsonists who've devastated the NHS in the last 14 years.
But why should
Let's
people
go
trust...
back instead to the party that delivered the shortest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction in the history of the NHS.
If we look at waiting times in Wales, where Labour is in control, and we've just had the latest figures on these, waiting lists for hospital treatment times have hit a new record high in Wales, according to these figures. So it's not going so well there. Why should people trust you for the rest of the NHS waiting lists?
Because there is a crisis in every part of the United Kingdom at the moment, England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And what happens in Westminster affects Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. That's why just the other week I met the Northern Ireland Health Minister, Robin Swan, to talk about how we could work together.
But we know that we're pressed for time, don't we?
It's the same... Well, yeah, we shouldn't have asked me so many questions about a Labour Party process has nothing to do with. See, I told you this would happen.
Well, it's the breaking news of the morning, isn't it? So it is of significance.
We've got to create a rising tide that lifts all ships to the benefit of millions of people across the whole United Kingdom. Yeah. That's why just yesterday, by the way, even the SNP's health minister admitted a Labour government in Westminster would be better for people in Scotland. And that's why voters in Scotland, rather than sending SNP MPs to oppose the Tories, need to send Labour MPs to replace the Tories, because working together, whether it's with the Ulster Unionist minister in Northern Ireland, the Labour health minister in Wales or the SNP minister in Scotland, I'm going to work with them to create a rising tide that lifts all ships across the UK, because that investment I mentioned earlier will have a direct benefit to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. I'm so sorry we run out of time.
Have we? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were running the clock on this. Actually,
we haven't.
Actually, we have some more time, and I'll tell you what, Minister.
We found some more time.
You do your job, and we'll do ours. And our job is to decide what questions to ask you, and your responses are up to you. OK, so let's keep that separation. Here's another question for you. The junior doctors... See, we are covering lots of other topics other than Diane Abbott. The junior doctors are implacable. The junior doctors are implacable in their pay claim. What will Labour do if they win the election to fix that endless series of strikes?
So firstly, I want to be really upfront with junior doctors this side of the election. The 35% pay claim they've put in, I'm just not going to be able to afford that on day one of a Labour government. We're going to have to work together and negotiate on pay and recognise, as was the case with the last Labour government, who inherited a similar mess, getting to fair pay is a journey, not an event. I'm willing to negotiate on pay and those wider conditions that junior doctors are working in, because they complain about their rotations, their placements. I've heard some awful cases, including a junior doctor whose partner had cancer, they both had kids, and the NHS showed no flexibility whatsoever about the placement for that junior doctor until there was a media outcry about the case. That's not treating junior doctors with respect.
No,
they're the future of the NHS, and I'm willing to sit down and negotiate on those wider conditions so that junior doctors are genuinely valued and look forward to a career in the NHS rather than thinking about whether they're going to stick it out because things are so terrible under the Tories.
You say you're willing to negotiate, though. I mean, they want 35%. That's the end of the matter as far as they're concerned. So either you're prepared to give them that to settle the strikes, or what are you going to do to fix it?
Well, to be fair to them, I mean, I think I heard them repeat again this morning, and they have said previously, in terms of the 35% figure, they're willing to negotiate, and we've seen that previously. So I'm willing to kind of sit down in good faith and with mutual respect to try and resolve these strikes. We didn't have national strikes under the last Labour government. This is another symptom of Conservative failure, which is why I warn again about giving the matches back to the arsonists on July the 4th. I do think we can have a breakthrough here, and even more importantly, I think we can give both patients and staff that positive experience of an improving NHS. And that's Labour's record. People can judge us on that. The shortest waiting times, the highest patient satisfaction in history. We did it before, we'll do it again.
OK,
right, it is almost a quarter to the hour, and now we really are out of time. We really are out of time. But I hope you think you had quite a few extra questions other than Diane Abbott. Enjoyed that. Thanks for your time.